Hello and welcome. This is Matthias 76. We're continuing our deep dive in the book of Genesis, and we're picking up here. This is part 2 of Joseph's brothers coming back to Egypt, and this is specifically about Joseph and his cup and what happens with the ultimate expression of this final step in this test of his brothers. So, just to pick it up and make sure we know where we are, Benjamin's serving was 5 times as much as they sat and ate. And if you didn't listen to the last video, make sure and go listen to that one first. Chapter 44. And he commanded the steward of the house, saying, Fill the men's sack with food as much as they can carry, and put each man's money in the mouth of his sack. Also put my cup, my silver cup, in the mouth of the sack of the youngest, and his grain money. So he did according to the word that Joseph had spoken. As soon as the morning dawned, the men were sent away, they and their donkeys. When they had gone out of the city and were not yet far off, Joseph said to his steward, Get up, follow the men, and when you overtake them, say to them, Why have you repaid evil for good? Is not this the one from which my Lord drinks, and with which he indeed practices divination? You have done evil in so doing. And the one is. So all of this, they're relieved. They got Simeon back. Benjamin is going back with them. They paid the money back. He's put the money back, and he put his cup. And the way it's referred to here, it's the cup he sat there and drank at the dinner that he shared with them. As far as the practices divination, you can trust that Joseph didn't practice divination. He's just using an expression that they would expect, because Egyptians would do things like this. Joseph wouldn't, because he was a follower of Yahweh, he who causes to be. But it just made the cup seem all the more valuable. And, they would put wine in and then a couple drops of something else and try to read that. And by the way the materials mixed, think that they could divine the future, or what was true and what wasn't, or what steps to take. That was the common practice in that age. So him saying that would be something they would expect, but it also, in their minds, increased the value of that cup. Without it, because the cup itself was supposed to be something special, without it, he couldn't practice his divination and maintain his rule and power. Again, not that Joseph really did any of those things. He didn't need that, because he had Yahweh. So he overtook them, and he spoke to them these same words. And they said to him, Why does my Lord say these words? Far be it from us that your servant should do such a thing. Look, we brought back to you from the land of Canaan the money which we found in the mouth of our sacks. We're good guys. We did the right thing. How then could we steal silver or gold from your Lord's house? With whomever of your servants it is found, let him die, and we also will be my Lord's slaves. Pretty strong statement. Doesn't say who says this. It's the collective. And he said, Now also let it be according to your words. This is the steward. He with whom it is found shall be my slave, and you shall be blameless. He wants all the pressure to be on it being Benjamin. Then each man speedily let down his sack to the ground, and each opened his sack. So he searched. He began with the oldest and left off with the youngest, and the cup was found in Benjamin's sack. Then they tore their clothes. Each man loaded his donkey and returned to the city. All the stress, all the pressure, all the testing over the course of more than a year has come to its peak. It's Benjamin. And he's going to be taken away. And they've got to ride back into town with these officials. So Judah, a couple things we'll go through this whole speech. Interesting point, just kind of a Bible trivia thing, but it's how important it is as well. This speech of Judah is the longest speech in the entirety of the book of Genesis. And it's Judah who takes the lead. And we'll read through the speech, and then we'll just kind of hit some of the highlights of it. So Judah and his brothers came to Joseph's house, and he was still there. and they fell before him on the ground, going down, except this time it's just flat out, straight out, total subjection to him. And Joseph said to them, "What deed is this that you have done? Did you not know that such a man as I can certainly practice divination?" Telling them what they expect to hear. And Joseph was a man of authority. He was very good at being in authority. When he was angry, do you think he could present that anger in a very effective and convincing way? And it was easy for him to do, because deep down, there was anger at his brothers, and he probably used that to really put the proverbial fear of God in them. Then Judah said, and this is the long speech, "What shall we say to my Lord? What shall we speak? Or how shall we clear ourselves? God has found the iniquity of your servants. Here we are, my Lord's slaves, both we and he also with whom the cup was found." God has found out the iniquity of your servants. You notice Judah doesn't deny. He's not going to try to deny it. That wouldn't go anywhere. But there's this two-sided thing that Judah is probably just thinking about the guilt that they had for what they had done to Joseph. There's that guilt unresolved. It stays with you. It haunts you. It doesn't go away. But he said, this is Joseph, "Far be it from me that I should do so. The man in whose hand the cup was found, he shall be my slave. And as for you, go in peace to your father." Carefully crafted. You guys go back and report to Dad that you lost your brother. Now, he's got them at the point where before, by their choice, they let Joseph, their brother, the favored one, be hauled off to who knows what fate. They thought he was dead. Who knows what fate? Now he has them telling them that forcefully he's going to keep Benjamin, and they have to go back to Dad. No more pressure can be applied than that. And now he's going to see who they really are. Have they really changed? Are they truly sorry for what they did? And their hearts have changed from hearts of stone. Remember talking about how hard-hearted they were as they heard Joseph's pleas and cries and let him be hauled away, sold for 30 pieces of silver. Have those hearts of stone been softened to hearts of flesh that truly have compassion? If you put them in an absolute terrible place, in that vice of pressure cranking down upon them, you'll find out who they really are. Then Judah came near to him. This is when the speech begins. I misspoke before. Then Judah came near to him and said, "O my Lord, please let your servant speak a word in my Lord's hearing, and do not let your anger burn against your servant, for you are even like Pharaoh." My Lord asked his servant, saying, "Have you a father or a brother?" And we said to my Lord, "We have a father, an old man, and a child of his old age who is young. His brother is dead, and he alone is left of his mother's children, and his father loves him." Then you said to your servants, "Bring him down to me, that I may set my eyes on him." And we said to my Lord, "The lad cannot leave his father, for if he should leave his father would die." But you said to your servants, "Unless your youngest brother comes down with you, you shall see my face no more." So he's recounting what happened. "So it was when we went up to your servant my father that we told him the words of my Lord, and our father said, 'Go back and buy us a little food.' But we cannot go down. If our youngest brother is with us, then we will go down, for we may not see the man's face unless our youngest brother is with us." Then your servant, my father, said to us, "You know that my wife bore me 2 sons, and the one went out from me. And I said, surely he is torn to pieces, and I have not seen him since." Remember, this is Joseph hearing this, hearing about his father's anguish of heart over him. "But if you take this one also from me, and calamity befalls him, you shall bring down my gray hair with sorrow to the grave. Now therefore, when I come to your servant my father, and the lad is not with us, since his life is bound up in the lad's life, it will happen when he sees that the lad is not with us, that he will die. So he's recounted everything, given Joseph insight into what transpired back there in Canaan, because Joseph didn't know about that. He's gotten detail on what transpired, how his father felt. So your servants will bring down the gray hair of your servant our father with sorrow to the grave. For your servant became surety for the lad to my father, saying, if I do not bring him back to you, then I shall bear the blame before my father forever. Now he's making a legal argument. I said I will take the blame. I said it's on me. And Joseph understood that language. Now, therefore, now he pleads. Know what he says. Now, therefore, please let your servant remain instead of the lad as a slave to my lord, and let the lad go up with his brothers. For how shall I go up to my father if the lad is not with me, lest perhaps I see the evil that would come upon my father? Judah, Jesus, the lion from the tribe of Judah. Judah saying, put the blame, put the guilt on me. The promise he made, he's asking to have Joseph, the ruler of Egypt, honor and accept him as the substitutionary sacrifice for Benjamin. You can't miss this stuff. It's important to get it. Now, we're going to go on and finish chapter 45, so we won't need to do part 3. It'll just be part 2, because how could we stop now? What kind of video producer would I be if I stopped now and left it like a cliffhanger? The emotion that's here, decades of it building, 2 years, and it boiling to a full force. Then Joseph could not restrain himself before all those who stood by him, and he cried out, make everyone go out from me. You wonder what the brothers thought? He didn't want the Egyptians there to see him bawling like a little child. Everyone go out from me, and they all went. And the brothers had to just be stunned. That was in Egyptian. Make everyone go out from me. They didn't know what he said. They saw the actions. So no one stood with him while Joseph made himself known to his brothers, and he wept aloud, and the Egyptians of the house of Pharaoh heard it. He was bawling. He was bawling. They passed the test. Now restoration was possible. They weren't the men who sold him into slavery. They had changed. They weren't going to allow the same fate to befall Benjamin that they had put upon Joseph. And all this while, trust me, we know the story, right? We know this story. If you grew up in church and in Sunday school, you've known this story all your life. Joseph didn't know that they would pass. And why would he think they might? Put enough pressure on them, they'll revert to type. They'll go back to who they are. Well, they did. The pressure stripped everything else away, and what he found was the brothers he wished he'd always had, the brothers who wouldn't have sold him into slavery in Egypt. Then Joseph said to his brothers in Hebrew, I am Joseph. Does my father still live? But his brothers could not answer him, for they were dismayed in his presence, and dismayed's an understatement. He spoke in Hebrew. They recognized his voice. If someone from your life, I think of my grandfather, with whom I was very close. I have not seen him for 38 years, for he passed away 38 years ago. If by some occurrence, which I'm just making up an example, I heard his voice in the hallway, I wouldn't have to ask, who is that? It's been 38 years, but I know that voice. That's my grandpa. That's Gramps. I know who that is. They knew Joseph's voice when they heard it. And remember, he looked entirely different. He was a young teenager when they sold him, and now he's a grown man in the attire of an Egyptian and shaved off his hair and all that stuff like an Egyptian. I am Joseph. Does my father still live? He'd already asked that question. He'd already gotten the answer, but it's all coming out. He just wants assurance again. But his brothers could not answer him, for they were dismayed in his presence. has to be the biggest shocker moment in all the Bible. It's got to at least be up there, with David hearing the prophet tell him, "You are the man." Boom. And Joseph said to his brothers, "Please come near to me." So they came near. Then he said, "I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. But now do not therefore be grieved or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. For these 2 years the famine has been in the land." Remember I told you that time hook? Think of a timeline. That's a hook that we can hang this event on. We're only 2 years into the famine. It's got 5 to go. And there are still 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvesting. And God sent me before you to preserve a posterity for you in the earth and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So now, it was not you who sent me here, but God. And he has made me a father to Pharaoh and Lord of all his house and a ruler throughout the land of Egypt. Oh, to have the faith of Joseph, the wisdom, the insight, the humility. Peter says, "Humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, therefore he may exalt you." Joseph was humble. You could say this about his take on all of this, decades of activity, the anguish of being sold, being cast into prison, the ups and the downs. Joseph never forgot, it's not about me. It's not about me. God's in charge. In his grace and mercy, he is sovereign over all. And now, and Joseph had been thinking about this, he realized why these crazy things had happened to him. Why me? Why am I Lord over all of Egypt? Why did I have the ability to interpret those dreams? Why did I find favor in everybody's sight? Why do I have these talents, abilities, and skills that allow me to govern the entirety of this nation, having had no formal training? God sent him as a savior in advance, because he was always going to take Israel, not just the man, but the beginnings of that nation. He was always going to bring them down into Egypt. It was the incubator in which they were grown into a nation. But there's no animosity toward his brothers. He's tested them. That needed to happen. But now, do not therefore be grieved or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. Genesis 50:20, when his brothers come back to him at the end after Jacob has died, and he said, "You intended it for harm, but God intended it for good. What you now see, the saving of many people." We need to understand our lives, our existence in this light, and pray for the wisdom for God, our gracious Lord, to give us insight into how he's using us, or to at least, how much time did Joseph spend? Let's go here. How much time did Joseph spend in the dark? It's just been over the course of probably a little more than a year that his brothers came and he was able to start to put things together. 20 some years before that, he didn't know. He didn't know, but he never lost his way. There was never resentment or animosity toward God that we're told about. He was just faithful. He was put there. He was doing what he was doing, trusting that God was in charge. And I don't know about you, but when things start to go wrong, I question. It's so easy to wonder. I might not admit it to anyone else. Why is God doing this to me? What have I done wrong? Why? Why has God forsaken me? We never hear that once from Joseph. Never once. He just continues on being faithful. So these are the lessons, this one in particular, that we really need to file away, appropriate, take in, and make our own. Trust what God's doing in your life and just pray for the faith and the strength to walk the path he has for you, that he would lead you where he wants you to go, even if it's not where you wanted to go, and trust that he's going to be faithful in that he's got a plan, that he's got a purpose. Pray for the wisdom and the desire to be useful wherever you might be. Because what do I know? I don't see the future. I don't know much. But I trust that God is good and gracious and that he will use me however he sees fit to use me. And I should not question him other than to say, Lord, please give me whatever insight I need and the faith that I need and the perseverance to walk out the path you have for me. And that is especially germane as we look at being here in these evil days. I've been thinking maybe I'll do a video on this, but I look at what's going on in the world and I feel like I'm in a Lord of the Rings movie and Gandalf is saying there's smoke rising in Mordor and there are orcs roaming the countryside, right? These are wicked days. The powers of darkness, the powers and principalities in the heavenly realms that Paul tells us that we need to take up the full armor of God that we might withstand them, that those are the days in which we live. So these truths, these lessons from the likes of Joseph, we need to make our own and take in. Oh, the insight that he had to save your lives by a great deliverance. Now, it was not you who sent me here, but God, and he has made me a father to Pharaoh and lord of all his household and a ruler throughout the land of Egypt. Now, he's eager. He's anxious. Hurry, go up to my father and say to him, thus your son Joseph. Thus says your son Joseph, God has made me lord of all Egypt. Come down to me and do not tarry. How do you think that conversation was going to go? We can blow right past that and forget that. There was a moment of truth coming. There was a moment of truth. Joseph's alive. I guess we never really told you that we sold him into slavery and he ended up being lord over all Egypt. So I guess it all turned out good. Don't disinherit us. The awkward. You shall dwell in the land of Goshen and you shall be near to me, you and your children's children, your flocks and your herds and all that you have. There I will provide for you, lest you and your household and all that you have come to poverty, for there are still 5 years of famine. They were going to wear out their donkeys going back and forth to get food in Egypt. And behold, your eyes and the eyes of my brother Benjamin see that it is my mouth that speaks to you. You know it's me. You can tell. So you shall tell my father of all the glory in Egypt, of all my glory in Egypt, and of all that you have seen, and you shall hurry and bring my father down here. Then he fell on his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, and Benjamin wept on his neck. A reunion. Moreover, he kissed all his brothers and wept over them, and after that his brothers talked with him. That is an act. He embraces them. He kisses them as was their custom in that day, and he wept over them. He's accepting them back. A poignant scene. Now the report of it was heard in Pharaoh's house, saying, Joseph's brothers have come. So it pleased Pharaoh and his servants well. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, say to your brothers, do this. Load your animals and depart. Go to the land of Canaan. Bring your father and your households and come to me. I will give you the best of the land of Egypt, and you will eat the fat of the land. Pharaoh was predisposed by God's actions through Joseph, the saving of Egypt and the saving of Pharaoh. Because if things had gone south, Pharaoh was the one who was in trouble for that. The Nile wasn't providing as it was supposed to, and he was in charge of the Nile. He was predisposed to be very gracious to Joseph's family. Now you are commanded, do this, take carts of the land of Egypt for your little ones and your wives, bring your father and come. Also, do not be concerned about your goods, for the best of all the land of Egypt is yours. Don't be like the Beverly Hillbillies loading up the truck and moving to Beverly Hills, that is, with all your junk. You're going to be treated like royalty here in Egypt. I'm sorry, I couldn't help the Beverly Hillbillies reference for those of you who are old enough to remember the Beverly Hillbillies. Okay, we're just going to read through the rest of this so we can put a bow on it. Then the sons of Israel did so, and Joseph gave them carts according to the command of Pharaoh, and he gave them provisions for the journey. He gave to all of them, to each man, changes of garments, but to Benjamin he gave 300 pieces of silver and 5 changes of garments, and he sent to his father these things. 10 donkeys loaded with the good things of Egypt, and 10 female donkeys loaded with grain, bread, and food for his father for the journey. Just special gifts. So he sent his brothers away, and they departed, and he said to them, "See that you do not become troubled along the way." Wisdom. He knew they were going to be in angst on their journey and wonder if this was some kind of ploy, a trick to get them all and do them all in. The wisdom that Joseph had is just impressive and consistent. Then they went up out of Egypt and came to the land of Canaan to Jacob their father, and they told him, saying, "Joseph is still alive, and he is governor over the land of Egypt." And Jacob's heart stood still because he did not believe them. But when they told him all the words which Joseph had said to him, and when he saw the carts which Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of Jacob their father revived. Then Israel said, "It is enough. Joseph, my son, is still alive. I will go and see him before I die." Jacob was still going to live a while, but he was very touched that his gray head wasn't going to go down to the grave in mourning over Joseph, as he had said previously. It's just some awesome, powerful stuff in here. I hope that we're all able to take these lessons from the example of the life of Joseph and apply them to our own lives. This is Micaiah 76. Together, we're decoding the deception. God bless and have a great day.